I want to try a little experiment to kick things off today. I want you to close your eyes. Seriously, humor me for a second, unless you're driving, in which case, please keep them on the road. But for everyone else, close your eyes.
Okay, I'm doing it. It's dark.
Right. Now, I want you to conjure up an image of a dictator. When I say that word dictator, what is the immediate instinctive picture that flashes into your brain?
Hey, I suspect I know exactly where this is going.
I'm guessing it's a very specific aesthetic, right? You're probably picturing a balcony.
Oh, it's definitely a balcony.
It's high up.
Yeah.
There are flags, big, red, imposing flags. And the guy standing there, he is definitely not wearing a hoodie.
No. He's in a military uniform, epaulettes, gold braid, the works.
Exactly. A chest full of medals, half of which he probably invented and awarded to himself on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
Maybe a sash. Definitely a peaked cap.
And don't forget the aviator sunglasses. That's the classic Muammar Gaddafi, or, the Pinochet look.
Right. The aviators are crucial. He's shouting into a microphone, the audio is a bit distorted, and down below there are tanks rolling down the main boulevard. We are thinking of the classics here. The greatest hits of the 20th century: Stalin, Hitler, Pinochet, Idi Amin, the guys who ruled through sheer, unadulterated terror.
That is the archetype. That is what political scientists call the dictator of fear. And honestly, for most of the last 100 years, that was pretty much the only model that mattered.
But here's the thing, and this is the core of what we are diving into today.
Yeah.
If you open your eyes and look at the actual autocrats running things today in the 21st century, that image, it's basically nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's vintage.
It's a costume drama. It feels like something from a history book, not the evening news.
Exactly. The wardrobe has changed. The military fatigues are gone. Today, the guy dismantling democracy isn't wearing a uniform.
No, he's wearing a conservative, bespoke Italian suit.
He's not shouting from a balcony. He's giving a keynote speech at a business conference.
He's probably doing a TED Talk on national stability or disrupting governance.
Right. He's not reviewing tanks. He's checking his approval ratings on an iPad.
He goes to Davos to schmooze with global investors. He has an Instagram account.
He holds press conferences. He holds elections. And here is the kicker, the thing that is really going to mess with your head today. He is often genuinely popular.
And that shift from the guy with the gun to the guy with the PR firm is exactly what we are here to discuss. We are basing today's deep dive on a fascinating and frankly slightly terrifying book called Spin Dictators: The Changing Face of Tyranny in the 21st Century. It's by Sergei Guriev and Daniel Troisman.
And their central argument is massive. They argue that the dictator of fear is being replaced by a new, much more sophisticated breed, the spin dictator.
It's a complete rebranding of authoritarianism. The premise is that the goal of a modern dictator isn't to terrify the population into submission.
That's old school.
That is old school. That is inefficient. The goal now is to deceive the population into enthusiastic support.
So it's not about pointing a gun at someone's head.
No. It's about messing with their perception of reality so they actually want you in charge. It's gaslighting on a geopolitical scale.
So our mission today is to unpack this. We are going to look at how these modern autocrats fake democracy, why they are so obsessed with being liked, which, again, feels weird for a dictator, and why this new model might actually be more dangerous because it is so much harder to spot.
It is not just about politics either. This is a story about psychology. It's about marketing, and it's about the modernization of control. It is about how you control a population that has access to the internet, that can travel, that has global banking. The old tools just don't work.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think to understand the spin, we have to really understand what they are spinning away from. We need to set the baseline.
Right. We need to look at the dictator of fear. This was the dominant model for most of the 20th century.
And when we say dictator of fear, we aren't just using a figure of speech. We are talking about regimes where violence wasn't just a tool, it was.
It was the entire brand. It was the product.
The product, yes.
Precisely. If you look at the dictatorships of the 20th century, Idi Amin in Uganda, Pol Pot in Cambodia, Stalin in the USSR, violence was theater. It was designed to be seen. Guriev and Troisman use a phrase in the book that really stuck with me: the spectacle of pain.
The spectacle of pain. Wow, that is a harrowing phrase.
It was a harrowing reality. The logic was that you needed to traumatize the population into obedience. If you create a state of total terror, no one dares to organize a rebellion.
Because you're too afraid to even talk to your neighbor.
You're too afraid to trust your own neighbors. You destroy the social fabric so that the only relationship that matters is between the citizen and the state.
The sources gave some gruesome examples of this. I mean, we're talking about things that sound like medieval torture, but happening in the 1970s.
Yes. Take Equatorial Guinea under Machis Nguema or, North Korea today. Public executions in sports stadiums were common.
In a state.
In a stadium. Think about the psychology of that. You take a place designed for leisure, for sports, for community, and you turn it into a slaughterhouse. You force people to watch.
In Haiti, under Papa-Doc Duvalier, didn't they essentially display corpses as a warning?
They did. They would display corpses on the street. But it wasn't just, here's a body. It was the degradation of the body. And there was that detail about Guatemala in the 1980s that I found particularly chilling. The government would publish cadaver reports.
What is a cadaver report? I don't even know what that means.
It's exactly what it sounds like. They would list the dead, but they would describe the condition of the bodies in graphic detail. Found with eyes gouged out. Found with hands severed.
Oh my God.
It was a message. It was a press release of brutality. It was a way of saying, look at what happens to people who cross us. And look at what we are capable of doing.
It's psychological warfare against your own citizens.
Exactly. The purpose was to create common knowledge of care. In game theory, common knowledge means that I know you are afraid, you know I am afraid, and we both know that we both know it.
Right, so even if we both hate the regime, we're both too scared to act.
If everyone knows that everyone else is terrified, collective action becomes impossible. I'm not going to start a protest if I think you're too scared to join me.
And to make this work, they had to isolate their people completely.
Completely.
You can't have people seeing that life is better across the border.
No. You block travel. You ban foreign media. You jam radio signals. You turn the country into a black box where the only voice is the dictator's voice and the only emotion is fear.
And the scale of this, I mean, the death tolls in the 20th century are staggering.
Oh, they're mind-boggling.
We gloss over them in history class sometimes, but we are talking about millions.
Tens of millions. Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot. It was industrial-scale slaughter. And that is where the shift begins. Because as the world moved into the late 20th and early 21st century, that model started to break down.
Why? I mean, if terror worked for Stalin, and it did keep him in power until he died, why doesn't it work for the modern autocrat? Why fix what isn't broken?
Because the world broke it. Two things happened: modernization and globalization.
Okay, break this down for me.
Okay, think about the economy. In Stalin's time, the economy was mostly industrial. It was digging coal, forging steel, harvesting wheat. You can force a gulag prisoner to dig coal at gunpoint. It's not efficient, but you can do it.
Right, you can whip someone into carrying a heavy rock.
Exactly, but you cannot whip someone into writing a good line of code. You cannot terrify a scientist into inventing a new vaccine.
Right.
You cannot coerce a banker into complex financial derivatives at gunpoint. It just doesn't work.
The modern economy, the knowledge economy, requires creativity. It requires initiative.
And creativity requires freedom, or at least a feeling of freedom. If you want a modern economy, and every dictator does because that's where the money to buy the yachts comes from, you can't treat your population like cattle.
And then there's the globalization angle. That must be huge.
Right. In a globalized world, mass killing is incredibly bad for business. It scares away investors. If you start slaughtering people in football stadiums, Apple is not going to build a factory in your capital city. The World Bank cuts off your loans, sanctions hit.
You become a pariah state.
You become North Korea, isolated and poor. And modern dictators don't want to be North Korea. They want to be rich. They want to shop in Paris.
They want to be part of the club.
Exactly. So they had to evolve. They faced a dilemma. How do I maintain total control without destroying the economy that makes me rich?
They had to rebrand Tyranny.
Enter the spin dictator. The authors lay out what they call the 5 rules of spin. And rule number 1 is the most surprising, considering where we just came from. Be popular.
Be popular, not feared, liked.
You must be genuinely liked. You need approval ratings. You need the majority of the country to think you're the right man for the job.
Which is such a weird concept for a dictator. Okay, rule number 2.
Consolidate power. But, and this is critical, you don't do it by suspending the Constitution or sending tanks to the parliament.
You do it with a pen.
You use your popularity to change the Constitution legally.
Ah, so you get the people to vote away their own rights. We love you so much, please stay president for life.
In a sense, yes. Or at least, please stay president for 2 more terms because you're the only one who can fix this mess.
Right.
It's done with the appearance of a democratic mandate.
Which brings us to rule number 3.
Pretend to be democratic. This is the camouflage. You hold elections. You have a parliament. You allow some opposition parties to exist.
You have all the props of a democracy.
All the props. You claim to be the most democratic leader in history. You don't say, I'm a dictator. You say, I'm the defender of true democracy against the corrupt elites.
That's a very different vibe. Rule number 4, open up.
Unlike the old isolationists, spin dictators welcome travel. They welcome trade. They use technology. They want their country to be integrated into the world economy. They want their kids to go to Harvard or Oxford.
Right.
They want to list their state oil company on the London Stock Exchange. They want in.
And finally, rule number 5, the big one.
Limit violence. This is crucial. You avoid creating martyrs. You use psychology instead of bullets. You discipline, but you don't punish. At least not in the old bloody way. You want to keep the body count as close to 0 as possible.
So what does this all mean? It means the dictator looks less like a warlord and more like a CEO.
Or a strict democratic leader who just happens to win every single election by a landslide.
Oh.
And the data backs this up. The authors looked at the numbers. In the 1970s, fear dictatorships made up about 60% of all autocracies.
Okay.
By the 2000s, spin dictatorships had risen to 53%, while pure fear dictatorships dropped to under 10%.
That is a massive flip. The market share of tyranny has completely shifted.
It has. The old model is a dying brand.
Yep.
And to understand how this methodology actually works, how you control the population without shooting them, we have to look at the pioneer, the architect of this entire model, the man who figured it out before anyone else.
We're talking about Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore.
The one and only.
Now, Lee Kuan Yew is a fascinating figure because he's often cited in the West with a lot of respect. He's the great modernizer, the man who took Singapore from a mosquito-infested colonial outpost to a glittering first world metropolis in one generation.
Absolutely.
But the book argues he essentially wrote the playbook for the modern soft authoritarian.
He did. He is the Steve Jobs of dictatorship. He innovated the product, and it started with a very specific realization. The book tells the story of the 1956 student riots in Singapore.
Okay, set the scene for us.
At the time, Singapore was still a British colony. The students were protesting, occupying schools, demanding independence. The British government responded the old-fashioned way.
Brute force?
Brute force.
Yep.
They sent in the riot police, tear gas, police batons. They cleared the schools.
Which, militarily speaking, worked. They achieved the objective.
Militarily, yes. But politically, it was a disaster. The British lost the hearts and minds of the public. The photos of police hitting students were everywhere. The British looked like bullies, and the students, even the ones who were actually being violent, looked like heroes, like martyrs.
Lee Kuan Yew was watching this happen.
He was. And he wrote later, I resolved that. I would never make the same mistakes. He realized that brute force makes the government look stupid. It makes the government look weak and fearful. If you have to shoot your own people, you've already lost the argument.
So he developed a strategy, I believe it's called calibrated coercion.
Right. The idea is to handle your opponents without making them martyrs. You want to neutralize them, but you don't want to turn them into symbols of resistance.
So, practical question. You are Lee Kuan Yew. You have a political rival who is getting too popular. He's criticizing you. He's rallying crowds. In the old days, you'd throw him in a dungeon or have him disappear.
Right.
What does Lee do?
You don't use the secret police. You use the courts. Specifically, defamation suits.
Lawsuits. You sue him. For what?
You sue him for libel. Lee Kuan Yew was a lawyer, remember. He understood the legal system better than anyone. He would wait for an opponent to make a criticism. Maybe they say, the prime minister is mismanaging funds.
Which is a pretty standard political attack in most countries.
In a democracy, yes. In Singapore, Lee would slap them with a defamation lawsuit. He would argue that his personal reputation was damaged, and because the courts were, let's say, friendly to the regime.
Captured might be the word.
Captured is the right word. Because the courts were captured, Lee would win, and the judge would award him massive financial damages. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The source mentions a specific politician, J.B. Jeyaretnam.
Yes, Jeyaretnam was a persistent thorn in Lee's side, a real opposition leader. Lee sued him repeatedly. Jeyaretnam was hit with damages he couldn't possibly pay. He was driven into bankruptcy.
And here's the genius part, the insidious part. Why does bankruptcy matter?
Because under the Singaporean constitution, if you are an undischarged bankrupt, you are legally disqualified from running for public office.
Wow, so you don't have to ban the opposition party, you don't have to arrest him for treason, you just bankrupt him so he's technically ineligible.
Precisely. It looks like a legal issue. It looks like a private financial failure. Oh, it's a shame Mr. Jarrett Nam can't run, but the rules are the rules. He shouldn't have been so reckless with his finances.
It's clean. It's rule of law on the surface.
It creates a facade of legality, and it denies the opponent the moral high ground. If you go to jail for freedom, you're a hero. If you go bankrupt because you lost a lawsuit, you're just a loser.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this model didn't stay in Singapore. This is like a franchise model. Other dictators started watching Lee Kuan Yew and taking notes.
They did. They realized that if you arrest someone for treason, they become a hero. But if you arrest them for something sordid, something embarrassing.
This is the strategy of the non-political crime.
Right. You arrest a rival for embezzlement, for tax fraud, for sexual misconduct, something that just makes them look dirty.
The sources list some wild examples of this.
Look at Turkey under Erdogan. He has a habit of accusing rivals not of being dissidents, but of being terrorists or criminals. There were cases of accusing rivals of using fake health reports to avoid military service. It's petty, but effective.
Or Kazakhstan's Nazarbayev.
Nazarbayev prosecuted journalists and opposition figures for money laundering. Or hooliganism, things that sound like regular street crime.
It serves two purposes, doesn't it?
It does. One, it physically removes the opponent. They're in jail or tied up in court. Two, and more importantly, it destroys their reputation. It dirties them.
It muddies the waters.
It does. If you are in jail for treason, you are a political prisoner. If you are in jail for money laundering, you are just a crook.
It's hard to build a protest movement around a guy who is in jail for tax evasion.
Exactly. Even if everyone suspects that the charges are trumped up, there's just enough doubt. Well, maybe he really did steal the money. It kills the momentum.
There was that one case in Malaysia, though, where this backfired. The Anwar Ibrahim case.
Ah, yes. The exception that proves the rule. This is a perfect example of what happens when you mess up the spin.
So give us the context.
It's the late 90s. The Malaysian Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, has a rival, his own deputy, Anwar Ibrahim. Anwar is popular, charismatic, a reformer. Mahathir wants him gone.
So he uses the playbook, a non-political crime.
He charges Anwar with sodomy. Now, in Malaysia, a conservative Muslim country, this is a very serious crime and a massive stigma. Ideally, this should have destroyed Anwar's reputation.
But Mahathir botched the execution.
He botched the spin part. He allowed Anwar to appear in court with a black eye.
The police had beaten him in custody.
Yes, and the press took photos. That image, Anwar Ibrahim handcuffed with a swollen black eye, it went around the world. It gave the game away.
It showed the violence.
It revealed the violence behind the curtain. It broke the illusion.
It sparked massive protests.
The Reformasi movement.
Yeah.
Because people saw the black eye and realized this isn't the legal process. This is a beatdown. A true spin dictator never lets the public see the black eye.
It's all about discipline without the appearance of punishment. The sources also mention this concept of the revolving door detention. We see this in Russia.
We saw this with Alexei Navalny for a long time, before the regime eventually shifted back to the fear model and locked him up permanently. But for years, the strategy wasn't to lock him up for 20 years. It was to give him 15 days here, 30 days there.
Just enough to disrupt his schedule, to be a constant irritant.
Exactly. You arrest him on the way to a protest, you hold him for a week, you release him, you arrest him again, you disrupt their organizing, you keep them off balance.
But you don't give them a 10-year sentence that creates a Mandela moment.
You deny them the gravitas of a long-term political prisoner. It's harassment, not martyrdom. It wears them down. It's exhausting. And it reminds me of that concept from East Germany mentioned in the book, Zersetzung.
The Setzung. That is a chilling word. What does it translate to?
It translates roughly to corrosion or decomposition. This was a technique perfected by the Stasi, the secret police of East Germany. They are the pioneers of psychological destruction.
How did it work? It sounds terrifying.
Instead of arresting a dissident and torturing them, which is messy and creates bad press, they would gaslight them. They would break into their apartment when they were gone.
And steal things. Plant bugs.
No, that's the crazy part. They wouldn't steal anything. They would just move things.
Move things? What do you mean?
They would take a picture frame and move it 2 inches to the left. They would take the milk out of the fridge and put it in the cupboard. They would change the time on the alarm clock.
That sounds annoying, but why is it a weapon?
Imagine it happening every day. You come home and things are wrong. You start to think you are losing your mind. You start to doubt your own memory.
You'd feel like you were going crazy.
Or they would spread rumors in your neighborhood. They would tell your neighbors that you were actually a police informant.
Oh, that is diabolical. So your friends stop talking to you. You're ostracized.
You become socially isolated. You become paranoid. You have a nervous breakdown. The goal was to paralyze the dissidents psychologically so they couldn't function politically. Decomposition of the soul.
And again, no bullets, no blood.
Just psychological dismantling. And modern spin dictators have updated this for the digital age, which we will get to later. But the principle is the same. Neutralize the threat without leaving a fingerprint.
So we have established that they control the opposition through lawfare, gaslighting, and bureaucratic harassment. But that's only half the battle. That's the defense.
Right.
The offense is selling themselves. We need to talk about the CEO dictator.
This is where the marketing really kicks in. This represents a huge shift in propaganda. The old-school dictators relied on heady, dense ideology.
Marxism, Leninism, fascism, the Jewish idea in North Korea, all these big, grand theories.
Right. You had to read the books. You had to memorize the slogans. You had to believe in the revolution. It was heavy, it was boring, and it demanded sacrifice. Comrades, we must starve today to build the utopia of tomorrow.
It's a tough sell, especially when there's no food in the grocery store.
Exactly. Spin dictators have realized that nobody wants to hear about sacrifice. They are post-ideological. They don't really care about doctrine. They don't demand you believe in a utopia. They demand you believe in one thing: competence.
The message isn't, I am the chosen one of history. It's, I am the only guy who can run this company.
I am the CEO of the nation. I deliver stability. I deliver growth. I make the trains run on time, and I make sure the Wi-Fi is fast.
The source highlights Nursultan Nazarbayev of Kazakhstan as a prime example of this, and I love this example because he sounds so boring.
He was intentionally boring. That was the point. Nazarbayev ruled Kazakhstan for decades. He didn't give speeches from a balcony shouting about enemies. He sat behind a desk, a big wooden executive desk. He wore impeccable, expensive suits.
And his speeches, what did he talk about?
His speeches sounded like quarterly earnings calls. He talked about KPIs, key performance indicators.
He talked about blockchain in a State of the Nation address.
Yeah, he did. He talked about blockchain, digitalization, infrastructure investment, foreign direct investment. He would publicly scold his ministers like a disappointed schoolmaster or a tough CEO. Why haven't you met these targets? Why is the road construction delayed?
It was performance art.
It was a performance of efficiency. And it's brilliant, in a way, because even if you hate autocracy, even if you want democracy, it's hard to argue with efficiency. It appeals to the middle class. It appeals to business owners.
Well, it's a dictator, but my taxes are low and the roads are getting paved.
Exactly. Do we really want to risk that stability for the chaos of democracy? That is the pitch.
But there is also a personality aspect to this. It's not just the boring CEO. There is still a cult of personality, but it's different.
It's not a cult in the Stalinist sense. It's celebrity.
And we have to talk about Putin here. He is the master of this.
Putin's the ultimate example.
Yeah.
Stalin was portrayed as a godlike, figure-distant, terrifying, non-human. You didn't want to have a beer with Stalin. You wanted to worship him from a safe distance. Putin's portrayed as a brand.
Yeah.
An action hero.
He's James Bond. He's the guy who can do everything.
Yes.
We have to talk about the stunts. The book goes into detail on these, and they are hilarious in retrospect. Putin flying with cranes, Putin finding Greek urns, Putin saving a tiger.
The action hero stunts. They are fascinating because they are so clearly staged, yet they are incredibly effective. Take the Greek urns. This was in 2011. Putin goes scuba diving in the Black Sea. He goes down a few meters and miraculously emerges holding two ancient Greek amphorae.
Which were sparkling clean, like they'd just been washed.
They were scrubbed clean, no algae, no barnacles. They had been sitting in the ocean for 2,000 years, supposedly, and they looked like they came out of a museum gift shop.
Because they were planted.
Obviously. His press secretary later admitted they were planted, or the tiger. He supposedly saved a TV crew from a tiger attack by shooting it with a tranquilizer dart. The tiger was actually from a zoo, heavily sedated, and they dragged it out there for the photo op.
It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. It sounds fake.
It is fake.
Oh.
But here is the nuance that we often miss in the West. We look at that and say, look how stupid that is. Russians must be brainwashed if they believe it. But the point isn't that everyone believes it literally.
It's not about literal truth. It's about something else.
No, it's about the vibe. It projects vigor, strength, coolness. It's pop culture.
Yeah.
You see people wearing T-shirts with Putin's face, listening to pop songs like I Want a Man Like Putin. It's participatory. It's ironic. It's modern.
To the fandom.
It's not a religion. It's a fandom. That's a perfect way to put it.
That's a crucial distinction. You can be a fan of a celebrity even if you know their stunts are staged. You enjoy the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And for the people who don't enjoy the show, the people who look at the clean earns and say, this is insulting to my intelligence, the dictator has a different strategy.
And that brings us to one of the most important concepts in the book, the division of society.
Right. Spin dictators know they can't fool everyone. They aren't trying to. So they divide the population into two groups, the public and the informed.
Okay, define these groups for us.
The public is the majority. They are generally less politically engaged. They work hard. They come home. They turn on the TV. They rely on state TV for their news. If the economy is doing okay and the president looks strong, they're generally supportive. They like the CEO style. They like the action hero stuff.
And the informed?
The informed are the educated elites, the people with college degrees, the tech workers, the activists, the people who read foreign news in English. They know the urns were planted. They know the elections are rigged. They know the dictator is lying.
So this is the danger group. Why doesn't the dictator crush them? Why not round them up?
Because he doesn't need to. In fact, trying to crush them might be counterproductive. It creates panic. It scares the foreign investors. The dictator's goal isn't to convert the informed. That's impossible. His goal is to isolate them.
Isolate them how?
To prevent the informed from waking up the public.
So it's containment.
It's containment and character assassination. You paint the informed as elitist snobs. Look at these people in the Capitol with their degrees and their foreign friends. They hate the real people. They hate you.
Ah, so you turn the skepticism of the informed into a weapon against them. They think you're stupid for liking me.
Exactly. They laugh at your values.
Yeah.
You neutralize them by making them culturally toxic. And for those you can't neutralize socially, you co-opt them. You give them jobs. You let them make money. You make them complicit in the system.
You can hate me, but if you work for my state-owned bank, you can afford a new BMW.
And if the regime falls, you lose the BMW. It's a powerful incentive to keep your mouth shut, even if you know the truth. We call it golden handcuffs.
So you bribe the elites and you dazzle the masses. But to keep the masses dazzled, you have to control the information they see. And that leads us to the media. Because if you aren't banning the media, you have to own it.
This is where we get into sensible censorship. And the master of this, another one of the great villains of the spin age, was a man named Vladimiro Montesinos.
Montesinos. This is a name that comes up a lot in the study of modern dictatorship. He was the spy chief for Alberto Fujimori in Peru.
The man behind the curtain. Peru in the 1990s is the perfect case study because we have perfect information about what they did, thanks to him.
It started with a mistake, right? The auto gulp.
Yes. In 1992, Fujimori staged a self-coup. He suspended the constitution to seize more power. And initially, he did the old-school thing. He panicked. He sent tanks to the newspaper offices and TV stations.
The dictator of fear move, shut it down.
Exactly. And it was a disaster. It caused international outrage. Investors panicked. The U.S. threatened sanctions. Fujimori realized immediately, I can't do this. I look like a thug. I look like a generic Latin American dictator.
So he apologized. He actually apologized.
He apologized. He withdrew the tanks. And he realized something profound. He didn't need to ban the media. He was popular. He could control the narrative without soldiers.
He just needed money.
A lot of money.
So how did Montesinos handle the media if he wasn't using tanks?
Bribery. Massive systematic bribery. But not just, here's some cash for a good story. It was institutional capture.
And we have evidence of this, right? This isn't just speculation.
We have the receipts. Literally. Montesinos was paranoid, so he videotaped himself bribing people.
He filmed himself committing crimes.
He did. There are thousands of videos. We can watch him sitting in his office pulling stacks of cash, millions of dollars out of plastic bags, and handing them to TV station owners.
That's incredible. Why did he film it?
Leverage. Mutual assured destruction. Once you're on tape taking $1 million from the spy chief, you belong to him. You can never turn on him, or he releases the tape.
So he owned the TV stations. They signed secret contracts to let him dictate the headlines.
Every day, he would tell them what the lead story should be. But, and here's the spin innovation that really matters, they didn't ban the opposition media entirely. They allowed small, independent newspapers and magazines to survive.
Why? If you're paying millions to control the narrative, why let anyone criticize you?
2 reasons. 1, to point to them and say to the international community, look, we have free speech. That newspaper hates me, and they're still publishing. We are a democracy.
It's a fig leaf.
It's a fig leaf. It keeps the NGOs off your back. And the second reason is even more clever.
And that is?
To borrow credibility. This is a fascinating concept. If the state-owned newspaper says the president is doing a great job, nobody believes it. It's propaganda.
Of course.
But if an independent newspaper says polls show the president is doing a great job, people believe it.
That is devious. You use the opposition's credibility to validate your own fake popularity.
Exactly. Spin dictators need a small, controlled opposition to validate their fake democracy. It's like a vaccine. A little bit of criticism inoculates the public against the idea that you're a dictator.
But they didn't just use the news, right? They used entertainment. This is the Bread and Circus's update.
Weaponizing entertainment, this is another Montesino special. He realized that if you want to keep the public passive, you need to distract them. He flooded the airwaves with trash TV.
Talk shows.
Talk shows like Laura in America, think Jerry Springer, but in Peru, screaming guests, paternity tests, scandals, people fighting on stage.
Why does that help a dictator? How does that work?
Because it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. It's distraction. But they also used it for character assassination. They used the tabloids, the chicha press, to destroy opponents. They wouldn't attack a rival politician's policies. They would attack his personal life.
So instead of debating tax policy,
they would call him a mental midget, a traitor, a sexual deviant. They would make up wild stories about his sex life.
It's not censorship, it's noise, it's pollution.
It's drowning out the message with filth. If an opposition leader tries to talk about corruption and the front page of every paper is discussing his alleged affair or calling him a pervert, nobody hears the corruption charge. It's not about stopping the signal. It's about jamming it with a louder, uglier signal.
Which brings us inevitably to the biggest signal jammer of all, the internet.
The digital frontier. This is the battleground of the 21st century.
I remember in the early 2000s, there was this huge optimism, the Arab Spring era. People thought the internet would kill dictatorships. Information wants to be free.
Liberation technology.
Right. You can't stop the signal. If everyone has a smartphone, tyranny is impossible.
That was the theory. But the spin dictators adapted. They realized the internet isn't a threat if you use it correctly. In fact, it's a tool.
So why didn't the internet kill the dictator?
Because the spin dictators moved into the chat room. They used the exact same techniques we just discussed. Distraction, character assassination, noise, but at scale.
Let's talk about the specific tools, trolls and bots.
Russia is the pioneer here with their web brigades. The goal isn't necessarily to convince you that Putin is great. It's to flood the comment section so that any real debate is impossible. If you post a criticism and you immediately get 50 comments calling you a traitor, a liar, or a foreign agent, you stop posting.
It creates a fake consensus. Everyone disagrees with me, so I must be wrong.
Exactly. Or everyone is angry and toxic, so I'm just going to log off.
Right.
Then there is friction. Instead of banning a website like China does, the great firewall spin dictators often just make it annoying to use.
Technical difficulties. The 404 error.
Or a DDoS attack. You overwhelm the server. The opposition news site loads really slowly. It crashes. It's frustrating. Most people aren't diehard activists. If the site takes 2 minutes to load, they just click away to YouTube or TikTok. You don't have to ban it. You just have to make it inconvenient.
And then there is the personal attacks. Doxing.
This was a favorite of Rafael Correa in Ecuador. If an activist criticized him online, his troll army would publish their private information, their home address, their emails, photos of their family.
That is digital intimidation. That's terrifying.
It humbles the target and scares everyone else into silence. And again, the dictator can say, I didn't do it. It was just some angry citizens on Twitter. It maintains plausible deniability.
It seems like there is a spectrum here. You mentioned China. China seems to be more of a fear model with the internet, right?
China is a hybrid, but they lean towards fear. The Great Firewall is wall. It blocks. It says no. Spin dictators like in Russia or Turkey prefer pollution. They don't block the information space. They pollute it with conspiracy theories, noise, and harassment until the truth is impossible to find.
I want to look at the numbers again. Because we keep saying they limit violence. But is that really true when it comes to the media? We hear about journalists being killed in Russia or Mexico all the time.
It happens, but we have to look at the data compared to the past. The authors analyzed the data on killing journalists. Fear dictators kill journalists frequently. It's part of the job description. Spin dictators, rarely.
What's the number? What does the data say?
In the data set they used, spin dictators average one state-sponsored killing of a journalist every 42 years.
That is incredibly low. I would not have guessed that.
It is. And the reason is simple. Killing a journalist proves you're a dictator. It's a PR disaster. It turns a reporter into a martyr. It wins them a Pulitzer Prize. But suing them for libel? That makes you look like a stickler for the law. Buying their TV station, that makes you look like a savvy businessman.
It's the difference between Al Capone and a corporate raider.
Perfect analogy. Al Capone uses a baseball bat. The corporate raider uses a hostile takeover. The result is the same. You control the territory, but the raider gets invited to the gala dinner afterwards.
So we've gone on this journey. We've gone from the obey or die model of the 20th century to this new love me because I'm competent model.
It's what the authors call the modernization cocktail.
It's a response to a changing world. You can't rule a complex, educated, globalized society with a whip. You need cooperation.
Exactly. You need scientists, you need tech entrepreneurs, you need international bankers. You can't terrify those people into innovation. You have to co-opt them. You have to spin them.
And here's where I want to land. This feels fragile.
It is fragile, incredibly so.
Here's a final provocative thought for our listeners. The spin dictator's greatest strength is popularity. But isn't that also their greatest weakness?
That is the so what of this entire deep dive. That is the Achilles heel. A fear dictator doesn't care if you hate him. In fact, he prefers it. Hate implies fear. If the economy crashes in North Korea, the regime doesn't fall because the terror apparatus is still there. The guns are still pointed at the people.
But a spin dictator, he has to keep the plate spinning.
A spin dictator needs to be loved, or at least he needs to be respected for his competence. He lives and dies by the poll numbers.
So what happens when the competence fails? When the economy tanks?
That is the danger zone. If there's an economic crash, if a war goes badly, if the deception is revealed, like when that Montesinos video leaked in Peru showing the bribery,
The house of cards collapses.
it can crumble incredibly fast because they have dismantled the machinery of pure terror. They don't have the gulags ready. They rely on the image. And when the image breaks, when the spell is broken, there is nothing underneath to hold the regime up.
So while they look more stable, while they look more Western and democratic, they are actually walking a tightrope every single day.
Exactly. They are surfing a wave of public opinion that they are frantically trying to control. But waves eventually crash. And when they do, the spin dictator usually has two choices. Get on a plane and flee, or start shooting and become a dictator of fear again.
Which is a terrifying prospect in itself. That is a fascinating place to leave it.
Yeah.
The spin dictator is a master of illusion, but illusions are hard to maintain forever.
Indeed. Reality has a nasty habit of breaking through eventually.
Thank you for guiding us through this. This has been a real eye-opener. I'll never look at a politician in a suit quite the same way again.
My pleasure. Just keep your eyes open.
And to our listeners, next time you see a leader talking about efficiency and popularity, doing stunts, suing journalists, look a little closer. Check for the spin.
And check who owns the TV station.
Exactly. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.